You suppose there's an international move afoot to disarm the population? Could that be the case, or is it just accidental? Well, those who are conspiracy theorists could find some ammunition with the fact that the United Nations has overwhelmingly passed an international treaty dealing with weapons. But some critics warn it could be a threat to the rights of gun owners here in America.
The Obama administration supports the treaty, but the Senate may reject it. Ephraim Graham has the story.
The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 154. Against, 3. Abstain, 23.
A pact critics say could lead to a national firearms registry and disrupt the American gun market. The treaty requires countries to take actions to ensure their arms exports won't be used to harm civilians or violate human rights laws.
The treaty we have agreed will make trade in conventional arms more responsible and transparent, reduce human suffering, and tangibly contribute to international peace, security, and stability.
The Obama administration says the treaty applies only to international trade, claiming it will not infringe on the Second Amendment rights of Americans. But the National Rifle Association disagrees. The powerful gun lobby argues the treaty violates the Second Amendment, pointing out among the list of regulated weapons are small arms, which includes rifles and handguns. Many in the U.S. Senate also oppose the treaty, including 8 Democrats. They vowed to block ratification. A 2/3 majority is required to make the treaty legally binding in the U.S. Senator James Inhofe said, quote, "Americans will not stand for internationalists limiting and infringing upon their constitutional rights." And Senator Thad Cochran is also opposing the treaty, saying the Senate has already gone on record in stating that an arms trade treaty has no hope, especially if it does not specifically protect the individual right to bear arms and American sovereignty. Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
Thanks, Ephraim. You know, there's something very important, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you say, well, I don't like firearms. But nevertheless, if you have a population that is armed, it'll be very hard for a dictator to just suddenly seize power. If the population is disarmed, it's very easy for a small group to seize power, take control of the major armament depots of the nation, and force conformity. So just keep in mind, this arms control is a weapon of dictatorship. It's not the weapon of freedom. Well, while Washington deals with the politics of guns, one of the most successful Republican governors in America has some political advice for his party. Lee Webb has more on that from the CBN Newsroom. Here's Lee.
Pat, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker is a proven fiscal conservative, and his stock continues to rise as Republicans think about their possible presidential candidates for 2016. Our Jennifer Wishon recently talked with the governor about how Republicans can do better in national elections.
Coming off 2 failed presidential races, some say the grand old party is in disarray. When asked about divides between the Republican establishment, Tea Party conservatives, T-evangelicals, and libertarians, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker paraphrases the Gipper. In politics, someone you agree with 80% of the time is an ally.
We don't have to have everybody agreeing on every single issue in order to move forward as conservatives and for people like me as Republicans, but we do need to largely be singing out of the same hymn, though.
He's the son of a Baptist preacher who's still influenced by his father's style of communication.
As conservatives, we think with our head, but that's how we communicate it, which is great from a process standpoint, but we need to talk about things from our heart.
So growing up in the pew with your father in the pulpit has helped you politically to share your message?
Well, it did, because again, it's the logic of the way my father would share the message, but also an emotion.
The 45-year-old has become a conservative hero after living to tell about the severe cuts he made to Wisconsin's budget to pull it out of a $3.5 billion shortfall. And he's still at it.
I'm making changes going forward that say if you're an able-bodied adult, you're not a senior, but you're an adult who's able to work, If you want to get food stamps in our state going forward, you either have to work or you got to be signed up for an employment program. Now, the left would say, oh, you hate the poor. This is all about making it more difficult to get on government programs. I challenge that right back and say, no, I love the people of my state. I love them so much. I don't want them to be indebted to the government for the rest of their lives. I want them to find it easier to get a job, not harder to get government benefits.
For Republicans to win in the future, Walker says they must be optimistic, relevant, and courageous.
Yeah, I think in the last presidential election, unfortunately, a lot of people knew what the threat was with this president, what would happen over the next 4 years if he was reelected. But there wasn't enough given as an alternative to say, and this is why we're for something, this is what we'll do.
As for what he'll do in the future, Walker says only God knows. The governor says it's his two sons who inspired him to run for public office in the first place. And regardless of where God leads him, he hopes to use his gifts to help make the nation the best it can be for them. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
It's ruled that a makeshift cross can be displayed at the 9/11 Memorial and Museum Park in New York. Here it is. Its intersecting steel beams survived the World Trade Center collapse in the form of a cross. Many New Yorkers consider it a beacon of hope that came out of the tragedy. But the group American Atheists sued to have the symbol removed from the site. Judge Deborah Batts ruled that the display of the beam is permissible because they bear historical importance. A little relief at the pump may be on the way. Gas prices have dropped to a national average of $3.63 cents a gallon for regular gas. The highest price this year was $3.79 at the end of February. However, analysts expect another upswing ahead of the summer driving season. They believe prices could go up to $4 a gallon. New technologies could bring the price of gas down in the years ahead. The U.S. expected to be a world leader in producing oil from shale rock. And Russia could experience an oil boom of its own. One Russian oil executive tells the Financial Times his country could use the new technologies to produce oil from Siberia. But he says the government has to help by giving the oil industry their new tax breaks to offset expenses. If Russia can increase its oil production, that could help lower the price here in the U.S. That's because there would be more oil on the world market. Well, the American Center for Law and Justice has won another ruling against the contraception mandate in Obamacare. The ACLJ representing two Ohio brothers who own produce companies in 23 states. The brothers are Roman Catholic and have a religious objection to providing contraceptives and drugs that induce abortions. The Obamacare mandate requires that insurance plans pay for those kind of drugs, but a U.S. Court of Appeals says the brothers do not have to follow that mandate until there's a final ruling in their case. Eating fish could help you live longer. Harvard researchers found that people 65 and older who eat fish could cut their risk of heart disease. The reason? Fish give them increased levels of heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids. The study concludes that people who eat food with those kinds of fatty acids could live 2 years longer than those who don't. Pat?
Well, as you know, we've been singing off that songbook for some years, and it's nice to find the experts are agreeing with us finally. But omega-3 is the answer, but you can find it in flaxseed oil and various types of fish oil and just fish itself. So it's a good thing. A couple servings of fish a week, and it's very delicious.
And take the flaxseed oil.
And take the flaxseed oil. But omega-3, just keep that. That's an easy one to remember. All right.
Alabama lawmakers are tightening rules for abortion clinics. The State House gave final passage to the Women's Health and Safety Act. That bill requires abortion clinics to use doctors who have approval to admit patients to hospitals in the same city. Some clinics use doctors from other cities that do not have local hospital privileges. Critics say it will make it more difficult for women to exercise their right to an abortion, but supporters say the new regulations will protect women. The fight over a portrait of Jesus has graduated from a middle school to a high school in Ohio. That picture had been hanging in a Jackson City middle school, but the American Civil Liberties Union, as well as the Freedom from Religion Foundation, sued. They claimed that the portrait unconstitutionally promoted religion in a public school, so it was moved to a wall in the city high school at the request of the student club that owns the portrait. The ACLU and Freedom from Religion Foundation are asking now that a court stop that display. The school district says removing it, though, would violate students' free speech rights. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.